Right, so some brief definitions for the NEBOSH National General Certificate course. We have health, the protection of, we can say, our bodies and mind of people from illnesses resulting from materials, processes, or procedures used in the workplace, right? So in terms of occupational health, yes, we can talk about the coronavirus as well, and we can talk about other viruses, but the main focus on occupational health is looking at those diseases. You can still say, you know, viruses, because you have occupational viruses, for example, like leptospirosis and Legionella, that would affect your body. And really and truly, those what we look at in terms of this course is really those that are really common in the workplace, right? We have the definition of health as being that which could affect your body, but you also have the mind here. So what you should know in terms of health, health covers both your physiological, you know, well-being, but also your psychological well-being. So just for those of us who may think that, for example, your work is stressful, and it is for some people. You are working very long hours. There are folks who are going to work today, and really and truly that we are putting our lives at risk in terms of the coronavirus. So then that does do something to your mind, right? I mean, that you do have to go to work, but at the same time, just the fact that it may be stressful and that, you know, that this could happen, that someone could become, you know, infected, that does affect your health at the same time, right? Let me just do the rest as well. So safety, the protection of people from physical injury. Some say it's the absence of unacceptable risk. It's concerned with the physical and mental well-being of the individual at the place of work. The middle one is very interesting. What the theory here is that they say that safety, yes, there is a definition, right? But in terms of the explanation, safety could be a matter of perception. For some people then, like they can go into a building and maybe they have never done a safety course, you know, so they will say it's safe, right? There are other folks who have done a safety course, and like when you get into a building, you would realize, well, they do not have any fire extinguishers. You're not seeing the fire exit. It's the same building, by the way, that somebody else may have thought was safe. But because you kind of know what to look for, right? You look around, you don't see any signs saying exit, you know, this way, muster point. So to you, it becomes unsafe. So what you say is that if there is unacceptable risk, it is seen to be, you know, like unsafe. But if you accept the risk, if somebody accepts the risk, like they say, okay, that you would have gone into, and of course, I know we don't go much places now anyway, but you could probably think of your workplace or where you have gone to. You say, you know, that you accept the risk, and mentally you say, okay, well, even though they don't have fire exits and extinguishers, you accept the risk. That's the theory anyway, that once you accept the risk, it is seen to be safe. But if you don't accept the risk, it is seen to be unsafe. Now, the good news is, and again, I know that I said you must have your paper and pen with you, is that, I want to say in the old days, but in the old days is really until last year, December 2019, when this course changed, right? But in the exam then, before the pandemic, students had to remember these definitions. Now, what I could tell is that you would not be asked to remember them because it's too easy if it is an open book exam. So it's just to appreciate them anyway, that health is whatever is in the workplace could affect your body and your mind. Safety is the protection of people from physical injury. In a way, if you accept the risk, it is seen to be safe. If you do not accept the risk, it is seen to be unsafe for you. The logic here is that safety is subjective to your perception. To a certain extent, in this course, there are other courses where it's not that subjective. You do have to calculate it anyway, right? Welfare, everyone should know this one. Welfare is a provision of facilities to maintain the health and well-being of individuals at the workplace. Welfare includes washing and sanitation arrangements, the provision of drinking water, heating, lighting, the list goes on, temperature, eye wash, station, etc. Again, I think based on the format of the exam, these things will not come It's just definitions to start the course. I will tell you when there is one for exam, right? An accident is any unplanned event that results in injury or ill health of people, or damage or loss to property, plant, materials, or the environment, or a loss of a business opportunity. The main thing to know here is that an accident is normally unplanned and the outcome is never good. The outcome of an accident is never good. If you look at to people, it's never good. It's injury, ill health, and sometimes death. To the property, it's damage and whatever have you. I suppose the one thing to know here is that an accident is what they say, it's unplanned, that nobody would really, at least no sane or no right thinking person will get up and plan to have an accident. You plan to, hit your car, or you plan to trip and fall on a flight of stairs, right? So an accident is really unplanned, and coming out of it, there's really nothing good in terms of the injury or the ill health or the property damage that could happen anyway. A lot of this one here, we talk about this next week, a loss of a business opportunity. If you don't get out of it, that's next week class. What they say though, I'll just share it with you, I guess, briefly, is that coming out of an accident, you have what is called direct and indirect costs. That's next week class. You probably should see it in your book already. They have it like an iceberg. I can go a little bit forward so you'll see it here. But we're not going to get to this today, right? You'll see it a little bit here. This iceberg there, direct and indirect costs. The idea there is that what they say is that following an accident, somebody may be injured. Going back to my definition, somebody may be injured, and the company can say, okay, well, this is going to cost us, $3,000 to repair the gate. The person who was in the accident may be away for, I'm going to say 2 weeks, so then they can say, well, we have to pay the person still, right? This is 2020 anyway, based on the employer liability insurance and stuff, right? So they have to still pay the person a salary. So they may have racked it up to be about, let's say, $5,000 that the accident is going to cost them to repair the company's van, and they're going to have to kind of probably help with the person's medical bills. If you have, most companies have doctors anyway, so that's taken care of, right? So I'm just probably putting a $2,000 markup figure there. But what they may not see is that that person who was injured may, develop more complications. It may cost them then, who knows if that person was their skilled technician. That person then may have been liaising with a client, and the client only wants to talk to that person. So you may find that because that person has not been on the job that day, the client called and didn't get the person, went on to maybe a competitor company. The list of indirect costs go on and on. If you go back to the iceberg, you'll see that it even goes into things like the person may, in the long run, bring a civil claim against the company, right? So you may have things like claims, like the person may bring a civil claim, and of course you'll have to read the rest of the slides. You'll see all of them as you go on, right? So you'll see things there that we're going to touch on next week anyway. But the point I'm trying to say is that normally if a civil claim is brought against a company, the settlement claim then is sometimes in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So whereas they think that they may be paying $6,000, it may end up being $60,000, and that's really putting it mildly anyway, right? So you get the idea that an accident, as I said before, is unplanned, and there's really nothing good coming out of it anyway. Next slide here, we have what is a near miss. So this is also called an incident. So a near miss, this is an incident that could have resulted in an accident. A lot of people know that from the word itself, near miss. A near miss is something that had the potential to cause an accident, but it did not cause the accident, right? That's why they call it, and that's why they call it a near miss. Some people refer to it as an aborted accident, or an accident that almost occurred. Like, I suppose if, again, God forbid, of course, that if you were on the job site and maybe something fell from height, pipe, right? If you were driving your vehicles and, as we say in Trinidad, a car comes out from nowhere, but you know yourself, you are good, you're a good driver and you are able to avoid the accident. And again, if you're on the job site and you see a pipe falling from height and you are able just to shift out of the way, you cannot go home and tell, your family, I made an accident today. The thing is, you didn't. You say, I almost made an accident today, or a piece of pipe, a piece of metal almost fell and hit me. Whatever it's almost, they refer to that as what is called what is known as a near miss anyway, right? I'm going to explain this little piece here as opposed to reading it. What they say in the companies, I don't know if you know this, a lot of you all would know this because you may be working in the companies. They do not just record accidents, because if you wait for an accident to happen, you may be waiting in vain. I don't know if you know this. Every month, safety advisors, may have to tally your, I would say statistics, but it's what happened in the month. You're going to tally the statistics to what happened in the month. So you're going to record how many property damages you have. They call it KPIs, key performance indicator. That's another class anyway. But I'm trying to tell you that every month safeties produce these data for their managers, and then these managers read it in the managers meeting, right? But the point I'm trying to say is that if you're waiting for an accident, some months nothing happened, right? Some months there are no property damage, some months there is no crushed finger, there is no amputations, and it's really waiting in vain. So to kind of, make up for that, a lot of companies, what they record the near misses, right? And I'll go into this another day. It is very complicated though, as a how to get Trinidadians to record near misses. Not too sure if you're getting this. A near miss is something that almost happened. So you're coming to work and you slipped on the pathway, but you didn't fall. How do you get somebody to record that? Because most Trinidadians, they will just say, that's okay. I almost fell and nobody was looking. So why should I report this? So just to let you know, for those of us in the companies have created a lot of ways to get people to record near misses. For instance, they give out bonuses. Some companies, they give like a reward. The person that records or the department that records the most amount of near misses will normally get like a recognition reward. This is actually something mandated in this country. I'll share on that another time. But for those of us who know what STO, again, anything you hear new, you should write it down, right? These are things we're going to share on as the weeks come by anyway. There's something called STO in Trinidad and Tobago. It is spelled, let's get the marker in case you're not hearing me too well. It's spelled STOW. And if you are, we are in Trinidad and Tobago. This is one of the most common safety management systems we have in Trinidad and Tobago. It's spelled STOW, STO. It's a certificate, by the way. You cannot get it. It's a certificate meant for companies, right? And the STOW stands for safe. Well, the TO means two, right? There's already any other meaning to that. So the first one is safe, TO is two, and the W is work, safe to work, right? For those of us who are in companies, you know that what I just said is a requirement. It is a requirement in element 1 of STO that the companies, they have what is called like a reward and recognition program for the employees tied into recording near misses. Now you might wonder, well, why? Why is near misses so important? Well, if you read this while I was talking, you would see what they say. You see, if you can catch the near misses when they happen, you probably have a good chance of preventing a full-fledged accident. I'll say that again. The reason why it's mandated and companies, if I can share this whole day, when I was at Massey, right? For those who know me, I worked as the safety professional for Massey, right? But while we were there, Massey actually gave out money. There was $500. There are companies that gave out vouchers. I don't know if they still do it because of the pandemic, but there are companies that give out electronics. Bechtel was one of them. Bechtel gave people televisions and radios and appliances and stuff. So why do all of that? The reason is right here. What they say is that you may have 0 accidents in 1 month, right? When you record it, let's say September, I'm going to put an S for September, you have 0 accidents. But in terms of the incidents, you may have actually about 30 incidents that happened in the month. Somebody almost fell, a truck almost reversed on another vehicle, somebody was parked the wrong way, somebody went through the fire exit where they're not supposed to go through. So the purpose in getting all of these incidents is that because nothing happened, it's a good thing that nothing happened, but the thing is what they say too, because nothing happened, the thing is if they can deal with this at this stage when nothing happens, if they can deal with the person that slipped on the walkway who did not fall, they have a good chance of preventing them the next time somebody slips. You know, they may fall, but if they deal with the water on the walkway, if they dealt with why did this piece of pipe fall from the scaffold was missing something called a toe board. If you know what that is, a toe board is just like the edge on the scaffold. But if they can deal with the things that didn't cause an accident, didn't cause any death then or injury, or I guess we say in Trinidad, bust head anyway, it didn't cause that, then you have a chance of preventing it in the long run, right? So they say research has shown here for every 10 near-miss events at a particular location in the workplace, a minor accident would occur. So the point is here, the more near misses you're having, you have a greater chance to prevent a full-fledged accident before it really happens, right? Case in point, I can share many examples with you all. I'm not too sure why I've thought about this one. And this one is really not work-related. So those of us who are not working, you know, this could be applicable to you all. To have happy, I know of a building. I knew of a building where the stairs were very, very long, and going up the stairs, students would normally complain that, I say students, it was actually students, and it wasn't my building, so this is when I was studying anyway, right? So students would normally complain that, you know, they slip on the stairs and they almost fall. Anyway, that school didn't do anything about it, and lo and behold, now this is a long flight of stairs. It was as long as from the top to the bottom. There were no like secondary level then, it just from the top to the bottom. It really had a day that a student slip and fall from the top of the stairs to the bottom of the stairs, right? And that was all avoidable because they had known about many such incidents before then, right? So that's a big purpose of getting incident data. I want to do 2 more with you all before we close off. Well, sorry, 3 more, right? We may go, I said, a little bit later than 10 today. So I want to cover the next 3, right? You have there also, you have what is known as a dangerous occurrence. Now, again, I'll do some explanation. I wouldn't do a lot of reading, right? So a dangerous occurrence is a near miss. This is what you have to know. What that means, if you just understand what I said, a dangerous occurrence is a near miss, meaning that nobody died in this. Nothing really happened. It is a near miss, right? But then why do they have a second category of near misses? A near miss is something that didn't happen, but it had the potential to cause an accident. So then why create another category of near misses? Well, the answer is that these types of near misses, if you look at the definition, that's what it is. These type of near misses are dangerous. That if these near misses had come to being, the person would have, read it with me, lost their life. The person would have lost their life. Understand that? So this type of near miss is not then like the one I was talking about here. The one I was talking about here, this I could go back a bit, right? These types of near misses I was saying here was like someone slipping, you know, on the footpath to work. You know, somebody walking up a flight of stairs. It mightn't be a very long flight, so I had used my example there. That was something real anyway. But with these dangerous occurrences, and these here are so dangerous then, or if they happen, you wouldn't just come out then like with a sprained ankle. You wouldn't come out then with a minor cut. You would end up losing your life. So I don't know if you could check this in your book. The book has some examples of dangerous occurrences. See if you can see those. I want to give you about 2, but you should really know about 4. So maybe you can probably take it on yourself to come up with 2 more. It's right in the book right there, but I'm going to give you 2 now. examples of dangerous occurrences, right? So you can probably just write these two down. I mean, if you have printed the PowerPoint, you can do it right here. I did mention you should have a notebook or something in class. A good example of like a dangerous occurrence is like the failure of a respirator, or what we can call a breathing apparatus, right? Someone that is in, I really don't want to sound too technical for those of us who are not in safety, but if you are in a vessel or a tank, someone is in a tank, they would have had to have like oxygen then, air supply to them. So the failure of a breathing apparatus, those of us who are in safety, you know how simple this is anyway, right? But for those of us who are not, you can take it down so that if that person is in a tank, failure of, that's supposed to be an E at the end there, failure of, I'm going to just put BA, breathing apparatus, and a breathing apparatus, in case you don't quite know what it is, it's like what those firemen will have, the tank that is going to supply an independent source of air to them. Again, imagine being in a tank, and tanks are not small. I mean, this is not your water tanks at home. This is huge vessels, huge tanks. Failure for BA. Now remember what I'm saying. If you look at the definition, the person did not die in a dangerous occurrence. It's a near miss. So the person did not die. In fact, nothing happened. The person walked out, right? Come the lucky stars, as they would say. But the thing is, if it had happened any other way, the person could have lost their life. Understand that? Make sure you make those connections. A dangerous occurrence, nothing happened. The person is alive, person is well. But it's not just a minor cut now, it's not just a sprained ankle. It's one in which the person, you could have died inside of that tank anyway, right? I'll give you another one. I think they have this one in the book. You have like maybe the failure of, sorry, the fall of a scaffold or the partial collapse of a scaffold, right? So the partial, so you can find this in your book. It should be just right there on dangerous occurrence. This is supposed to be partial, partial collapse. I'll just put scaffold here, right, of a scaffold. So again, the partial collapse meant that maybe the scaffold went down, it slid down, the worker kind of held on. For those who know about a scaffold, if that is actually happening, the workers and them will slide down the scaffold. They're not supposed to, but anybody know about scaffold work? If you know about a scaffold work, if you know what a scaffold is, right? If that scaffold starts to go down, the men and them will slide down these pipes, right? They're not going to stand up there. Just take it from me, right? If you don't know what I'm talking about, they will slide off these pipes and they're not supposed to. They will slide right down here. They will take it from me. They will do that. The point I'm trying to say is that they would have escaped. Nothing happened to them, but again, they could have died, and that is why it's called a dangerous occurrence. So for homework, you can probably come up with two more. I'm not too sure if you get it now. What I mean getting it, I normally like to teach where you could understand. Understanding means you do have to go and look at the book. To really get an example of a dangerous occurrence, what you have to do, you have to make up an example of where somebody escaped, but if they didn't escape, they could have died. You cannot then go and say a dangerous occurrence is like somebody slipping on the workshop floor. That will not be death. You can probably say they slip on a height over 6 feet tall, and then that may lead to a dangerous occurrence, right? See if you could understand it. Now, again, the point about me teaching like this is because, you know, I mean, they have just changes to the open book exam. You all about the 4th batch anyway. But in up to last year, I keep saying time passed, but up to last year, December, that's what you had to understand. You had to understand that you can make up your own definition. You didn't have to go to the book one. You didn't have to go to the one in the book. And once you make it up where it was so serious, where, you know, like for example, a car overturning. I mean, we have all heard about those examples, right? Like where you'll hear a car overturn on the highway, did a 360, make about 10 different rules, and the driver came out of the car. Nothing happened to the driver, right? They make, you know, lucky stars, whatever have you. Nothing happened to them, right? The point is that is a dangerous occurrence. The person could have died by fate or by luck and chance, whichever one that you believe in. The person would have survived, right? And nothing happened. They don't have a scrape. So that is a dangerous, that's a dangerous occurrence. You can make your own examples on those. Question? Right, for the sake of homework, right? you can email me your homework. I mean, this is really simple to come up with 2 more examples, but I'll give you some homework at the end because we are quite finished as it. I want to take a couple minutes still and do just one other thing, right? So you could email me your homework. I normally try to get it back to you the very same week anyway. Just trying to change the marker here, right? Given if I today do have much homework, today is the very first day anyway. So you could just type that up and I would normally correct it and send it back to you as soon as possible, but I have something else to add to it, so I'm going to try to get to that. So the last 2 definitions for today. Well, typically the class finishes by 10. Today, like I said, we did take half an hour in the orientation, which would have taken up today's class anyway, right? So we need to know we need to know these two definitions. So the first one is a hazard, and the second one is risk. It's right on the slide, right? So what they say a hazard is a, sorry, I'll take it at the beginning. A hazard is the potential of a substance, person, activity, or process to cause harm. One of the things about a hazard you have to know is that it is the potential of something to cause harm, right? So, you know, I was telling you on the project requires that you get 10 hazards. Well, you can get more than 10, but 10 as a minimum. You're not supposed to get more than 13, by the way, 1 3. You could get 14, but you're not supposed to overdo it, right? 13, they stop counting at 10. In case you double up at 1, they will give you the mark if it has crossed 10 a bit. Last year, right, up to December 2019, students had to get 30. Make a note of this, you have to get 10, right? So the folks who used to have to get 30, they never had a problem with it, right? If you wonder why, I mean, isn't 30 hard? The point is, if you read the definition, it is all about the potential. You don't have to wait for it to happen then, right? You don't have to wait for, like, if you look at the room that you are in then, like the lighting to be poor, for it to be a hazard. Once there's a potential for that, you can say lighting is a hazard. You don't have to wait then for like a bottle of water on a machine shop table to be a hazard, to actually fall and create a hazard. Once the bottle of water is there, it is a hazard. You understand that? So in a way then, if you understand this definition, anything could be a hazard because anything and everything, including people around you, have the potential to cause harm. In other words, and to make this short, for you, just to kind of boil it down really simple, could lighting be one of your hazards? Yes. Could the chair you're sitting on be a hazard? The answer is yes. They call it ergonomics, right? Or poor ergonomics. Could ventilation be a problem where you are at? The answer is yes. Ventilation could be a hazard. Could it have slip, trips, and fall? The answer is yes. Could it have noise? The answer is yes. So that's 5 right there. In a way then, as I said before, anything and everything around you could be a hazard. You don't have to wait for the noise to severely affect you. You don't have to wait for somebody to slip on the ground for it to be a hazard and then say it is a hazard. In fact, by that time, for those who know, if you slip and you fall, it's no longer a hazard. It's actually called something else, right? But at the stage where it have the potential to cause harm, that is the stage at which we call it a hazard, right? Next definition, and this is the last one for today. Next definition, they say risk is the product. Product means to put together, if you remember a little bit of, just adding someone in the back there, right? Primary school or secondary school maths. So product is the togetherness or putting together of the likelihood and the consequences of a substance, activity, or process to cause harm. What are they saying? They're saying here, risk is the product of the likelihood and the consequences of the hazard. I'm going to try to get the marker there, right? Of the hazard to cause harm, right? If you read the bottom piece of it, to cause harm, the last piece of it there. So a risk is the likelihood, in other words then, of what you say going to happen actually happening. Now what they do, I'll make this short for you here, they use numbers to represent that. The formula is risk is equal to likelihood by consequences. And I'll do it right here. Just, you can probably look on, and if you had to make notes, you can make it afterwards. I'll leave it up there a little bit. They use numbers 1 to 5 on each side of this formula. In other words, then, likelihood is counted from 1 to 5, with 1 meaning less likely, 5 meaning very likely. Consequences is the same thing. The consequence, if somebody could just get maybe like a bruise, it would be 1. But if the person could die, 5 is death, then you put it as 5. You put these two together, and when you work this out, you end up getting a number for risk. Risk is, if you read it here, risk is this number that you get is the chance. Another word for likelihood is chance. If you're playing, you know, cards or whatever have you, or any kind of gambling game, the likelihood of you winning, then if you're playing, I guess, I don't know what they call it, snake and ladder, if you're playing, I guess, at the primary school level, you toss that, you toss the, forget what they call it, the thing with the different, you know, the different numbers on it, right? So if you toss that, the likelihood of coming up with a 6 then is the chance of coming up with a 6, right? So what I want to show you here, these are normally used in conjunction together. When I mean these, the hazard and risk is normally used in conjunction. So what I'll do, I want to show you this on a clean sheet. Let me just get a clean sheet for you now. Right? You can take this one down, given if I had the handwriting, and this is often not very good because I have to maneuver the cursor, right? So I was saying that the hazard and risk is used together. When I mean together, it is typically how you do a risk assessment form, right? That I mentioned this spreadsheet before. On this spreadsheet, there'll be one column with hazard and there's another column for risk, right? So they're normally used together. So let's say, I'm just gonna make up one here. Let's say, you can probably come in with this one on and a bit and help me with this one. So the hazard, I'm gonna draw back this scaffold again. That is supposed to be a dot. I'm gonna draw this scaffold here. Let's say this is pretty much about 10 feet tall, and this is the top of the scaffold here. I'm gonna try to attempt to draw a stick figure here. So this is someone I really wanted to draw as if the person was leaning over. It's a bit awkward anyway, that's the point. The person is kind of awkward in there, right? So this is someone in a scaffold. Anybody could probably tell me what you think could be the most common hazard here of this kind of work? You have more than one hazard, but I just need one for now. A common hazard, the person could what?
Fall.
The person could fall, right? So very good. So the person could fall. So we can call this fall from height. That is the proper name of the hazard, fall from height. Now the thing is, remember, the person has not fallen. That's the point about a hazard. It's about the potential. The person didn't fall. If you look at my stick figure, the person did not fall. The person is on top there. The person did not fall. But the thing is, as a safety, I suppose, and I guess those of us who are doing this course anyway, you want to get what is the hazard. I'd have more than one hazard, but I want to go with the most simplest one because of the time. Anyway, plus for the exam is only 10 you need. So fall from height would actually be one of you or 10 anyway. So that's the hazard. We want to go and calculate the risk of the fall from height. So to calculate the risk, I mentioned before, you have to put two things together. You have to come up with the likelihood and the severity. Each of these is counted out of 5. So this is 1 to 5, and this here is also 1 to 5. And we have to just kind of do this in the class, right? Like now, the thing is, this is highly subjective. So is a real risk assessment. A real risk assessment is highly subjective. Only thing different is in the real workplace, we'll know a little bit about this person here and about how good this scaffold is. But with my stick figure, we could still make a rough guesstimate, estimate, right? So let's look at this on a scale of 1 to 5, how likely we think this person could fall. Anybody could come in, and this 1 means they would not fall, 5 means they will fall. The numbers in between means that they have a, you know, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less anyway. Any ideas on a number here? It's just a guess for now. Today is the very, very first class for this anyway.
Maybe
4.
Okay, maybe 4. Anybody else? Those are all correct?
X3.
3, okay, good, right? So for simplicity's sake, I'll put 3. Don't kill me because I just want to pick a number anyway. But like I said, in the real workplace, we'll know who this is. This could be a young worker. I didn't talk about that here. The scaffold could be poorly erected and stuff. But for now, we just assuming it is what it is. It's just for the sake of you doing the calculation. The severity. Now the severity is what would happen if they fall.
He could die.
Right, very good. A very good observation. You see, the likelihood could be 3, but the thing is, if they fall 10 feet high, as the figure spoke about before. So the severity is going to be 5. I don't know if you understand that. We'll talk about this. Now, this is actually taught in chapter 4, but we just for the sake of doing the definition today, 3 by 5 will give us 15. Now, that 15 is expressed over 25. Anybody can tell me why 25? The 15 then is rated on a scale of 1 to 25. Anybody can say why is it rated out of 25?
Because the maximum you could achieve with the risk is 5, and the
Very
maximum with the likelihood is the consequence is 5. So 5 by 5 is 25.
Excellent, Alana, right? So yes, so the highest here will ever be is 5, and the highest here is ever is 5. Now, by the way, I know today may sound as an introduction class, but it's not. This is all that there is to risk assessment. Risk assessment in the workplace goes up to 25 worldwide. Even though today is just a very, very first class, this is all that there is to it. So on a scale of 1 to 25, I could assume that 15 is maybe somewhere here, 20 maybe here. So 15 is somewhere here. So what this proves is that the risk is kind of high. This is where you come up with the risk. Risk is about 15. So risk is kind of high. So we can probably say the risk is, I wouldn't say very high, but I would say probably, I could probably say medium, to be honest with you. That may be a better thing here, that the risk is actually medium. And for those in the workplace, what this means is that if the risk is medium, we do not need to stop this man. He can work, but of course we should probably improve it a bit, but it doesn't mean stop. If you ever get a number like 20 to 25 and the risk is high, you have to stop the job. We'll talk about that, I guess, in another class, right? So I want to just review what we did today. See if you have any questions. So what we did, we would have looked at some basic definitions. Now, I tell you before, they wouldn't really come and ask otherwise health and safety and welfare and stuff because it's an open book exam. The only good definitions we covered today was the last 3: dangerous occurrence, hazards, and risk. They might not really ask you to define a hazard for exam, but you know your project is that you have to go and get 10 hazards. I took off the page with the whiteboard now, right? You have to go and get 10 hazards and you have to go and do the risk assessment for it. Is there any correct or wrong answer for doing a risk assessment? The answer is no, in a way. If you get 15 and somebody else get 20, for this exam, it will be correct, right? There is a risk assessment is subjective, right? If you had said 4, I could have very well chosen the 4. 4 out of 5, 20. There is no right or wrong answer for it. NEBOSH wouldn't say that, like they have 20, and if you don't get a 20, like a maths, like if it's maths and it's supposed to be 30 degrees and you don't get it 30, you get it wrong. Safety is not like that. If when you do your project, if it's not as if they have a number for your hazard, they're not going to say it's going to be 20, and if you get 12 or 4 or 6, it's going to be wrong. It's however you see it, as that piece of it is highly subjective anyway. So I do have a bit of homework here for you. I want to close up because I said I have another class starting in a bit. So your homework, right? Your homework would be, I mentioned before at the orientation that the second textbook is meant for the project. So one of the ways we kind of get people, remember the project is based on the theory. So even though today is we just had about 45 minutes of a class, the first half an hour was really orientation. You would see that the theory is used in your project, right? As well as the open book exam, of course, but this piece is relevant to the project. So what I want you to do, now you can choose to do this by using your second textbook. I know some of you may have to take out the plastic. I left the plastic on those books anyway. But you want to use your second textbook, or you can do this from your head, all right? If you are good enough on, you know, on how I said it in terms of a hazard is anything. So anything on your table right now could be a hazard. The chair you're sitting on, ergonomic hazard, right? Anyway, I want you to come up with 10 hazards. And what you want to do for me, you want to give me an example of each one. So if I can grab my marker. Now, why I said you could use the book, because the second book, let me just change the screen view again. The second textbook, right? NG2, every chapter is a different hazard. I have mine here, right? This is going to take me some minutes if I decide to show you all of this, but you can just, you know, like open a page at random, and how some people read anyway. You can open a page at random, and every chapter is a different hazard. So chapter 10 is fire. Chapter 9, machinery hazards. Chapter 8, movement of people and vehicles. Chapter 7, specific agents. That would be things like using carbon monoxide, bloodborne viruses, etc. Right? So if you get in trouble with it, what you can do, you can use the book, right? Saying if you get in trouble with it, you can use the book. But I wanted to get 10 hazards, and I wanted to give me an example of the hazard. So like how I had there, fall from height. You're gonna put something, no, by the way, when you do this, remember you're really doing this for the project, yeah? So make sure you do this. But anyway, once you type it, you'll be able to keep it 10 to 1. These are the same thing you're gonna go and put back on your hazard sheet for the project. You don't have to, because from now till we do the project, you'd have had about 5 or 6 classes. I mean, just about halfway through the course anyway. I think I put there falling from height, right? So if one of the hazards is falling from height, what I want you to do is like give me like a little scenario of it then. So falling from height, and each one should be about maybe 2 lines long, right? So falling from height, and you're gonna put, sorry for the bad, I'm trying to talk and do this at the same time. So falling from height, and you're gonna put like a such as a worker or a painter, you know, working on the outside of a building. So everyone, to be honest with you, it may be like a line and a little bit based on the hazard that you choose. Everyone a line and a little bit. The reason for this is that this is how you have to answer the OBE, right? All of this, I know you don't know this yet, but for those of us who have had classes, if I have Durelson and the other guys and them there, it could be more than 2 lines if you want to. I am saying this, whatever you choose. If you choose one like viruses, right? Bloodborne pathogens, all of that, if you know them, anything could be a hazard. Any 10 will do, right? Just give us such as, give a little scenario behind it as to like how it could happen, as how we had fallen from height from, I can make up something and say a young worker was working on a poorly erected scaffold, right? They do not need to be 3 lines. I am just saying some of them would lean itself to be more lines than the others. Some of them like noise, but may just be noise as from a noisy generator, right? So some may end up being 1 line long, but this is what this format here is also the format for how you answer, right? When you hear people talk about the OBE is like a written exam, this is like the format for the answer, and you have to put it like this, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think I had somebody at the office, I closing with the statement, I had someone at the office, when I told them the pass mark was 45, they said, okay, that's really low. But what I could tell you is that, do you know that there are people that do not make it? You may wonder how they don't make it. Now remember, I taught at UE, so I know what I'm talking about. In UE, sometimes a student would write a large volume of text on a page. And because it's like a page or more, you give them 10 out of 10, right? Now, NEBOSH is not like that, right? NEBOSH, if this text you wrote here had 1 point in it, this whole page had 1 point, you'll just get 1 mark out of the 10 marks. So to compensate for that, what they advise students to do is that you normally number your points, and typically the questions on the OB, if you had a look at it, when maybe we finish it, they can go back and look at it on the home page. The questions are worth 10 marks each. So normally to get the 10 marks, you have to give them 10 points. You would never get 10 marks if you do not give them 10 points. If you give them 5 and 4 of that wrong, you'll end up getting 1 mark. If you give them 6, you get 6 marks. If you give them 7, you get 7 marks, right? So, see, Roxana getting tired, right? So that is it. We almost finished. We actually finished the idea for today, right? So I'm just talking about the exam. So please practice it like this. This is also beneficial because you're not going to write a large volume of text, but it's kind of like hitting the nail on the head. It's hitting the nail on the head. I should tell you too that the book exam have a word limit. and the word limit is 3,000 words. Now, what that means, I'll talk all about this as the weeks go by, right, folks? What this means in the simplest sense is that you can't overwrite. They don't want you to overwrite. They don't want you to take 24 hours to do the exam. They just want you to do it. If you do it like this, the folks who did it in August, they just, in fact, to be honest with you, none of them really bothered with the word count. They just answered the question the way I showed them how to do it. And by doing it like this, their word count was all around 28, 29. One person was 3,100 words, right? So the point of it is not a large volume of text that is going to give you the mark, but indeed, every point will give you the mark. And I'm done for today, right? Let me just see if you have any questions. I'm going to probably stop the recording because if you have any questions, it may not be what we want to probably post up